Okay.
All right.
I'm shy.
Trying to stay away. He's away behind the camera.
Where are you guys from?
Poland.
Oh, wow. I've always wanted to go to Poland.
Welcome. Come on. Come
hear
on in.
it's
We'll
great.
take you.
Canada.
We filmed season 2 in Prague, which is,
I know.
closer than Georgia to you.
Yeah,
so-
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
New Jersey.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Connecticut.
I want to ask you about
Massachusetts.
second season. So
Yes.
it's a big thing for you. How did you cope with that? People actually wanted to see this show because you had earlier the podcast. So everybody thought that this is only a extra thing for the viewers, and they loved it. They offered you the second season. So how did you choose the stories for the second season?
In a lot of the same ways we chose season 1 stories. The difference being we had a more official writer's room for season 2. I don't think season 1 had like a sit down, everybody in the same room sort of moment. And we were able to be a little bit more thematic about this. And there's a lot of connections between these 6 different stories that we didn't have in season 1. And it let us be a lot more intentional about the collection as a whole. If we have one we have the Bloody Countess, Elizabeth Bowtry, but then we have Mary Webster, a woman accused of witchcraft, and they try to hang her, and there's a good variety there. Hinter Kaifek is a murder mystery in the woods, but Jack Parsons' story. He was the founder of JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he was a rocket scientist and an occultist. And so they all have a very unique flavor, which I really love.
And being the first podcast to go to TV, to do this, there is no playbook.
Yeah.
So season 1, we're creating, we're ideating, literally, we're figuring out how to do it, right? Season 2 is like, okay, this worked, that didn't, this worked, that didn't, let's change this up. We are dialed in now and elevating. Now we know, we created it, and now we're, I think, perfecting it.
So how does season 2 differentiate from season 1? Like, what did you do to elevate the storytelling?
It's pretty substantial.
Yeah, season 1, you watch the main story come out. TV, we call it the A story, right? It's the main one. And then throughout the episode, you'll get pulled out to learn about this or to see this in another place. And those are great elements pulled from the podcast, because I do that it's all about context in the podcast. It's telling the story with the tools you need to view it properly. In TV, it pulls you out of the moment. So in the effort to be true to the podcast, I feel like we hampered the viewing experience just a little bit. People kept getting pulled out of the story of Dr. Walter Freeman because we had to go learn about transorbital lobotomies, and it's that kind of thing. So here it's so much more focused on the A story, and those contextual moments when they happen are baked right into the A story. So you can't miss them, but they're natural. They're embedded in it organically.
To tell, like, in a simple way, Aaron's podcast probably features, and I'm making this up, 30 to 40 names, either of characters or of things they do that are important, like types of science, places in the world, right? In a TV show, if you have more than 5 or 6 characters in an hour of TV, you're like, it's crazy town, right?
Yeah.
So we looked at season 1. We're very proud of it. Amazon loved it. We got a second season. We're really able to say, okay, here is the story. Here are the main characters. Here's who we're telling the story through. Aaron brought up a great point, which is in the podcast and in season 1, Aaron was the main character. It was his voice. His voice is what's in your head. His voice and his point of view is what's delivering the story. In the TV show, we want the story to speak for itself. We don't want an intermediate, Aaron, as good as he is at telling stories in the visual format, you want the main character to be the guy you're scared of,
Right.
you're watching.
Yeah, let him be the main character.
Right?
Yeah, and we do that. Yeah.
I mean, some of the season 2 episodes are not on the podcast.
Only 2.
But why did you choose to do that, and how? Why those 2?
Can I ask one question first? Can I ask you, are you going to do the 2 ones? Are you going to make podcasts
I'm
out of them?
not.
Okay,
That's part of my answer on this. One thing we've learned is that some podcast episodes just don't translate to video. We won't be able to do some of them. And I think that the same can be said for other ideas, that they will work perfectly well in a video format, but they really wouldn't work well. The Prague Clock episode in this new season is a great example. When you see it, you'll understand. It's full of gears and mechanisms. It's a gigantic ancient clock. And that you can't get that across in an audio podcast. So I feel like you have to start with this story and say, this story belongs in which format? some of them can go either way.
Both, right.
Some of them go to audio, some of them go to video. And right now we're learning that we can do that with these story ideas. And in the writer's room, it's kind of fair game. It's like, well, here's one we've never done before, but visually, this will be stunning. The Jack Parsons episode's another very visually stunning episode. The occult symbols, the rituals, things that you couldn't do in an audio show are done so well in a TV show.
So it's possible that you will go both ways on the TV.
We will, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's creatively liberating, right? So on the one hand, you have the podcast. We have Aaron as the ultimate resource. He's the source material, right? So when he's coming up with new ones, he's telling us this one. And now I would say we're thinking together of things. Aaron, I would say, is thinking of things. Oh my God, I wanted to do this as a podcast, as a subject of lore. It doesn't quite work. You should check it out. I mean, this guy's the ultimate resource. But now we can also look at it from a totally different way.
That's right. Yeah.
Increases our creative, ability, which is nice.
Right.
So there will be like two separate things, podcast and the TV series.
It'll always
in the
be
future.
based on the podcast. Lore is the franchise. The podcast is kind of the mothership, and that is what we pivot off. But I think for season 2 and beyond, we're no longer bound to just being, we have our own organism, the TV show, and as long as tonally we're true to lore, we feel like we have carte blanche to tell different, great, awesome stories. But they still will be stories from the podcast and original.
And, there's a book series as well, 3 books.
Yep.
The last one comes out this week on the 9th, and they have stories from the podcast, but they also have stories that weren't in the podcast. Because in the print world, it's really easy to group a lot of these like-minded stories, same themes together. It makes sense. So every medium is going to give us a new, flexible tool, and we're playing with that. Yeah.
All right. And
Thanks, sorry, that's
all right.
And he has a great new podcast, top 4 in the iTunes world right now. That's awesome.
Unobscured.
I was going to say, what's the name?
Unobscured.
Unobscured.
Unobscured. It's awesome.